Hey everybody, Evan Freiberger here. We got another weather forecast for you, and this time we're going to be talking about the potential, small potential, but still a potential for tornadoes, and also a bigger potential for some major flooding with this storm. I mean, we're talking about a pretty dangerous threat here with a lot of rain, and that can cause a lot of problems. So let's go ahead and get to it. But before we do, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you end up enjoying this video. But okay, let's get into it. All right, looking at the latest data here from the NAM 12K. We're looking at the whole of the United States here, and you can see we still have this storm that is dropping a little bit of freezing precip out there up into, the Chicago over there, a little bit there into Iowa, also into Nebraska and Kansas as well. And you can see that we do have this band of snow still happening up there as well. And that's going to start to form right around 6 a.m. and it's going to move out pretty quickly. It's not going to really stick around for too long. So maybe some extra snowfall for some of you guys, but really the main hotspot is going to be there, kind of in central Michigan, kind of northern Michigan there, and then also still some decent potential for some snow over there in the northeast as well, going into 12 a.m. on the 24th. But now look down here, we do have some potential for some very heavy rain out in the southern portion, the kind of new storm that's rolling in, another low pressure system that's going to bring some bouts of severe weather along the coast. So we're going to be going over that in today's forecast as well. And then looking over on the west coast, still have some of these storms making their way into the land there and bringing some extra rain and snow in the mountainous regions. So a decent amount to go over this forecast and to break down for you guys. So let's go ahead and do it. All right, looking at the estimated snowfall totals out there for people up in Iowa going all the way through into New Hampshire here, you can see we do have a light dusting expected over here for Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, maybe getting up into those 1 to 2 inches around the Milwaukee area, kind of northern Illinois there. And then going into Michigan, just to the north of Lansing near Mount Pleasant, you can see that we do have 2 to 3 inches possible there around the Mount Pleasant area. And then also maybe like 1 to 2 inches just to the north of Muskegon there. And then still have this weird disagreement between the NWS out here, but they're saying, potentially 4 to 5, maybe almost 6 inches for some parts there near Flint, Michigan, and then just to the north of Detroit and in Detroit, about 1 to 2 inches. Then moving this over to the east, widespread areas of around 1 to 2 inches from Rochester, Ithaca, Syracuse, Utica, kind of just to the west of Albany there, and then going into Virginia, not Virginia, Vermont, you can tell that there's little 1 to 2 inches spots all the way around going down to Concord, New Hampshire, and then over there in Massachusetts, potentially 1 to 2 inches. And then as you get into the mountainous regions, again, those elevated snowfall totals will happen up there as well. But, very low impact kind of snow event up there. So that's good news. So do we have any more icing with this storm to deal with? And a little bit more. And it's mainly going to be this little strip here going from Chicago kind of into the Scranton region with some areas over the lake there. Really got to watch out. Those fish out there could freeze. So if you're a fish, make sure you're going deeper into the lake there, just in case that freezing precip does end up falling on you. Because if you don't, you're just going to be very easy to take and put into a refrigerator for somebody to eat. So definitely want to watch out there if you're a fish. But everybody else potentially could get up into those, a tenth to maybe 2/10 of an inch of icing. Definitely going to have some slick roads there along Highway 74 going into Highway 80 there as well. And then coming on over to kind of near Williamsport, potentially another area of around maybe even a quarter of an inch there, just kind of to the north of Williamsport. So, still some icing to come, but nothing that you guys can't handle. I mean, we're expecting minimal impacts. If you do have to drive, make sure you drive slow and make sure, you're not, pressing on the brakes too hard because that can cause you to skid. But other than that, should be a pretty easy going ice event up there. All right, now we're going to start talking about the severe weather that's going to be possible down here in the southern plains and also going into the southeast as well. You can see that we do have a marginal risk out there for Novia, Laredo, going into San Antonio, New Brunsfeld, Austin, College Station, Houston, League City, Galveston, Corpus Christi, Kingsville, Beaumont, and then parts of Louisiana, including Alexandria, Lake Charles, and Opelousas there. So this is a 1 out of 5 for severe weather. So you definitely want to be weather aware, but it's nothing to lose sleep over. Just make sure you have alerts on. And again, I'll be monitoring this storm today, as it comes through and just seeing, if we get any spin in the atmosphere, if a tornado does happen, I will go live. But yeah, we do have a little bit of a tornado risk out there. That's mainly for Victoria, College Station, Houston, Lee League City, Galveston, Beaumont, and those same regions over there in Louisiana also have that damaging wind risk, kind of for the same areas, but expanded a little bit to the north and west there around Round Rock and Austin. And then that hail threat is actually being included here, and that's going to be College Station, Round Rock, Austin, New Brunsville, San Antonio, Victoria, Corpus Christi, Kingsville, and Nuevo Laredo there. And then going into day two, we have another marginal risk out there, and that's going to extend all the way from Corpus Christi through Victoria, Houston, League City, Galveston, Beaumont, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Gulfport, Macomb, Hattiesburg, and Laurel. So if you live in any of those cities, make sure that you have a way to get those weather alerts. Again, if a tornado does happen on this day, I will try to go live for it. Also, we do have that 2% for tornadoes, not low, not non-existent, but still there, still a risk. And so that's going to be League City, Galveston, Beaumont, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. I really do think as the storms make it over towards the Baton Rouge area, that's where the tornado threat is going to be at its peak. So definitely got to watch that area as those lines of storms come through there. And then what else we got to worry about this? We got to worry about damaging winds as well. That's going to be for the entire marginal risk, including Mobile there. So the same area as the marginal risk. And then looking at the hail risk, we're not really talking about a big hail threat out here. So yeah, a couple days of severe weather are going to be possible, mainly along the golf course. So, or golf course, yeah, only on the golf course. So, if you're golfing in any place on the United States, watch out for that severe weather. Jeez Louise. The Gulf Coast, mainly along the Gulf Coast there. So definitely watch out and make sure that you are weather aware. All right, now looking at the timing for the storms, moving kind of into like a couple hours from now, you can see that there is going to be some slight rain to heavier rain over there near College Station in Dallas. That should stay under severe limits, and that's going to be around 7 a.m. So a couple hours when this forecast comes out. And then, as we get into the evening hours, we might see some stronger storms start to develop over there near Colleen with a small severe potential. That kind of moves up to the north towards Tyler and Shreveport, not really being too severe then. Then as we get into the late night period, kind of into the overnight period, you can see this kind of line of storms starts to form down here near San Antonio, Victoria, and Corpus Christi. And this is going to be our main severe weather threat and tornado threat. It's going to be an overnight event. So again, just make sure you have a weather alerts. Again, it's nothing to lose sleep over, but there is that small tornado potential. So, if you're one of those people that like to be hyper weather aware, you might have to stay up pretty late that night. But, again, I personally would go to sleep, just have a weather radio on that will alert me if something does end up happening. And then that line moves off to the east in the morning hours. Again, it could have a small severe potential, but that's not going to be the main event. It's really going to be as we get into around 12 p.m. when I really think the tornado threat's going to start to pick up. All these storms out here are got a sheer environment that is favorable for tornadoes. It's just really not the right storm mode. A lot of these storms are going to be kind of in a linear line, and the ones that do form over here, they're going to have something called a capping aversion, or what we call as a cap. And that's basically pretty self-explanatory. It's just a cap that's on the storms that keeps them from rising and becoming strong or severe. But if that can get eroded, we could get some stronger storms over here as well. And what's interesting about that, or what's interesting about the 24th here, which is the day that we're talking about, is that we come over to the surface base cape. You can really see that it is the strongest here at around 12 p.m. If we look at the spin in the atmosphere, you can see that we do have some lower level shear there. Again, I would say it's about a 2 out of 5 for lower level shear, maybe a 1 out of 5, 1.5 out of 5 for upper level shear, but it's still there, and that could still potentially support some, mini supercells out there, and potentially, that small tornado threat. And so, it's definitely something that we're going to need to watch out for as these storms start to move through, starting at around 12 p.m. And that's, impacting Jackson, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and then some storms could be making its way into Houston and then pushing this through. You can see still have some storms out there by 3 p.m. around the Beaumont, going up into the Alexandria region, Nacogdoches or Natchitoches, Lufkin, and Jasper. I'm not sure which one. Both of these names are hard to say. I remember that. I remember getting a lot of crap about that while doing a live stream one time. But yeah, those storms continue. I mean, and look at this. It's this band of rain. Band of rain. You see, watch this little band here. All of this red and yellow, that's heavy precipitation or heavy rain falling down to the ground there, and it just doesn't stop. It just keeps going over the same exact regions, and that's why we're going to be expecting some major flooding out of this storm. If we come over here to the estimated rainfall totals here, let's see if we can get that up. Yeah, there we go. I mean, look at this. What, like, this is just early on here. By around 6 a.m., we could have a large strip here of 15 inches of rain, according to the NAM 3K. This is going to be extreme scenario here if this does happen. I mean, this is about as much rainfall as you can get out of these storms as you possibly can. So this is definitely, I do think this model's a little bit overdone here, but the consensus is for a widespread area of around 8 inches to 12 inches in this main band here, and potentially some elevated rainfall amounts over there near Little Rock and Pine Bluff as well. So a very dangerous day out there for flooding. I would say the flooding threat should be what you guys are paying attention to. Remember, these flooding storms can be really dangerous. It can flood really quickly. You don't have a lot of time to act, especially if you're not aware of the flooding. There's puddles on the road that might look shallow. You drive over them, then you lose your car. There's a lot of things you got to watch out for with floods. And so definitely have a plan in place to deal with that, an action plan to go to the top of your floor if you do end up getting in one of these flood events here. I mean, and look at this. I mean, really from Beaumont going up into Alexandria, that's a very heavy band of a lot of rain. So this could definitely be a big event here. So please be weather aware. Let's kind of go over the latest graphical information on this really quick. All right, so here's today's, and as you can see, we are going to have some elevated precipitation, amounts out there, but it's not going to be as bad as going into tomorrow and the next day. But I mean, look at this. We're talking, Houston, League City, Galveston, Beaumont, Lake Charles, Natchitoches, and Lufkin and Jasper. You guys are all in that slight risk. It's a 2 out of 4 for flooding. And then that green goes all the way up to the north into Fayetteville, Fort Smith, over there near Baton Rouge. But as we go into day 2 here, look at this. We have a moderate risk here for flooding. That's a 3 out of 4. So that's dangerous day for flooding. That's going to be for Shreveport, Natchitoches, Alexandria, Ruston, Nacogdoches, Lufkin, Jasper. Then we have a big slight risk extending all the way from Austin over to Jackson, Mississippi, parts of Arkansas, Oklahoma as well, and then all the way down there in Baton Rouge. And then it doesn't end there. The next day, we have a much larger area for those floods. Again, flooding is dangerous. Please be weather aware. 3 out of 4 for flooding is no joke. We have seen flood emergencies happen in 3 out of 4, and I wouldn't be surprised, again, if we could get a high risk for flooding, which would be a 4 out of 4. Those are definitely some elevated rainfall amounts that we've got to watch out for. But going into day 3 here, which is not tomorrow, but it's the next day after tomorrow, is going to be for Monroe, Jackson, Greenville, Tupelo, Florence, Alabama. So please, guys, if you live in these areas over there near Alexandria, Lake Charles, you need to be weather aware. You need to be watching those rivers and watching, the floods on the roads as well as these storms come through. React fast if it does happen. Also, we got a slight risk around that, sending from southern Kentucky through the central western portions of Tennessee, northern Alabama, going into central Alabama there near Birmingham, down through Gulfport, Baton Rouge, New Orleans and Louisiana, Houston and Texas, Shreveport, Louisiana as well, and parts of Little Rock. And then we have a marginal risk extending all the way from Ohio down into Florida into Texas. So widespread flooding is definitely going to be possible. And please, again, just watch those roads and rivers. This is going to be a dangerous couple of days for flooding. All right, last but not least, we're going to talk about these temperatures out there. We are still expecting it to warm up and warm up quite significantly going into tomorrow as we get into like 12 p.m. around those peak heating hours. Look at that, potentially widespread 60-degree temperatures all the way south in this circle here, also extending into this portion of Texas as well, with a kind of a big tongue here of 50-degree temperatures, especially for January, extending, all the way in this circle as well. And the 40s are kind of up into this circle. Let's go ahead and draw that completely out there. And then the 30s are kind of around in this area. So find your state on the map, and there's your temperatures. And then we have below freezing, mainly over here in the mountainous regions, and then hanging on up there in Montana, also over there in North Dakota, then also over here in the Northeast. And then moving on into the next day after after that, on the peak heating, you can see those warmer temperatures start to expand. I mean, we're talking, widespread 60-degree temperatures all the way up the East Coast, down to the South there, with those 50s kind of backing off a little bit, but shifting around over here in this part, 40s over here, and then those 30s kind of in this blue mark, and then below freezing still hanging on in these circles here. And then, Northeast is exiting out of the below freezing and kind of in those 30s as well. And then going into the peak heating hours of the next day here at around 3 p.m., you can see we start to see maybe even some 70s and 80s here for southern Texas. Also 70s and 80s down there in Florida. Widespread 60s still, kind of a little bit more muted, but you can see those 50s start reaching, all the way up into this region as well. So, definitely some warmer temperatures making its way into the country here, and then pushing this into the next day peak heating. You can see those 60s kind of shift a little bit more to the east, cools down there a little bit in Texas. Everybody else staying kind of similar each day here. Really, the major changes are going to be happening down there in the southeast. But yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, as it does help us in the algorithm to reach more people with these important forecasts. But thank you so much. I will see you guys on the next one.